Right, you've reached retirement age now, and it's time to think about life and living annuities. This video is designed to help you understand those a little better, and we've put together a nice slide deck to make sure that you understand them properly. Right, so just before we get started with the slides, these slides are available for download in PDF format directly from the website. So don't worry about taking notes. You can simply listen and just read through the slides as I'm going through them. So let's look at life and living annuities and find out a little bit more about exactly what they are and how they function. So the definition, a life or living annuity is a financial product that pays the owner a regular income in retirement. Living and life annuities are usually utilized when people retire and no longer have a formal income in the form of a salary. Essentially what they are doing is they are there to provide some form of income to you when you retire. And as I said there in the next point, life and living annuities are applicable for individuals who have reached retirement age or older. It's very important to understand that you can buy life and living annuity products from various service providers, the likes of the Old Mutuals, the Sanlums, the Momentums, Alan Gray, all of those kinds of guys are very happily Liberty. They all provide a life or living annuity, but they have to be bought with proceeds from either your compulsory money. So if you've got a retirement annuity or a preservation fund, either a pension or a provident fund, those funds have to be utilized to buy a living or life annuity. You can also use discretionary money, so money that you've got sitting in the bank, or you have decided to cash in a unit trust portfolio. That money can also be used to buy a living or life annuity. Let's understand what the difference between a living and a life annuity is. Let's start with the life annuities. Life annuities are also called guaranteed annuities because they pay you a fixed monthly income for the rest of your life. The amount you receive depends on how much you contribute. That means to say somebody who buys a life annuity with 2 million rand is obviously going to get a lot less a month than someone who's got 10 or 15 million rand. And obviously it depends, the quantum that you have initially depends on the income that you will get for the rest of your life. The guys, the clever actuaries and everything work out based on weekly rates, with how much they feel how long you're gonna live for, and how much they can pay you in retirement. So the rates vary from week to week, and it's important to make sure that you have a look over the period to understand what those different rates are in order to get the best one for you. And recently, just through, when I say recently, middle of sort of 2020, we had some rates which we haven't seen before in the industry, giving people fantastic monthly incomes. So be on the lookout for that. It's important to understand that you take out the life annuity, and if you take out just a bang average, simple, no frills, no fuss life annuity, if you took it out tomorrow and you had to pass away, that money would disappear. It dies with you. You cannot pass it on to your beneficiaries or any of your dependents. So there are other options to negate this, because obviously a lot of people, want to make sure that there's some kind of continuity and some kind of cash available for either their spouse or their children when they pass away. You can do that with a life annuity. There are just a couple of other things that we need to look at and go through. And I'll explain that in the next point. So life annuities are products you don't have to think about again. They're very nice and simple. You buy them once. You don't have to worry about stock markets. It guarantees you an income. Most providers today do offer different options. So if you're wanting to say, I would like my income to increase with inflation every year, you can do that. If you're wanting to say, I want my life annuity to guarantee me a period of payment for at least 15 years, you can do that. So let's just take that example there. If you bought a life annuity and it was guaranteed for 15 years and you you died after 8 years, the life annuity would still pay out to a nominated beneficiary for the remainder of the next 7 years. So you can have guaranteed periods, and as I said, you can have your funds increasing with inflation as well. The other important thing which a lot of people do is they normally have a joint life assured, which normally means husband or wife takes out the policy and the other spouse is the joint life assured, which means the life annuity only stops paying out when the last of the spouses die. So if the husband dies first, it will continue to pay until such time as the wife dies. And what some people do is they take out joint life and they also put in a guarantee period. So if we had husband and wife after 2 years, but they've taken out a 15-year guarantee period. So if after 2 years they pass away and they've taken out the 15-year guarantee period, it will still pay out to their children for the next 13 years. So obviously you don't want to go out, buy this life annuity with all the money that you've saved for retirement, pass away, and it just disappears. So there are some guarantees that are in place to prevent that from happening. So if we go through to the next slide, we're going to look at a living annuity. And the difference between a life annuity and a living annuity is very simple. A living annuity, you're not guaranteed any of the income. A life annuity, you are. But think of a living annuity as a pot of money that provides you annuity income for as long as you've got a pot of money. The nice thing about this is when you do pass away, anything left in that pot of money goes to your beneficiaries, and it is not part of your estate for estate duty purposes, which is obviously something very, very important. The other thing that we'll touch on in a little more detail is that living annuities do not have to comply with Regulation 28. On the next slide, there's a explanation as to exactly what Regulation 28 is, but effectively all that is you cannot have more than 30% of the investments that you're invested in being outside of South Africa. So that's all that Regulation 28 essentially is. There are a couple of other finer items. The other thing that's very important to understand with a living annuity is that you can only draw down between fixed percentages. The lowest that you can draw down, you have to, is 2.5%, and the maximum you can draw down is 17.5%. You can have any value between 2.5% and 17.5%, but the minimum you have to withdraw from a living annuity is 2.5%, and as I said, the maximum is 17.5%. So if we just look at the example on the slides, let's just say we have a living annuity with 10 million rand, and we decided to draw 2.5% on an annual basis. You'll get 250,000 rand. That's 2.5% of 10 million rand. And then you obviously have to divide that by 12. So you get 20,833 rand a month before tax. It's important to understand that living annuities and life annuities are taxed. And we'll talk about that in a couple of slides' time, exactly how life and living annuities are treated for tax purposes. So as I said, the maximum you can draw is 17.5%. If we went down and we had a look at that, if we had 10 million rand and we decided to draw 17.5% of that, you've now got 1.75 million rand. If you divide that by 12, you've got 145,833 rand a month before tax. Obviously, the more you draw down, the shorter period, the shorter your retirement pot of money is going to last. The nice thing about the 10 million rand that we're investing is it can be invested in the markets for growth. So moving on to the next slide, it's very important to understand that having a maximum of 17.5%, it's 17.5% of the fund value, not just the 10. We put 10 million rand in year one, and we get 1.7 million rand out, 1.75 million rand out in year one. Next year, we have to take 10 million. We've taken out 1.75 million. So we're now left with 8.25 million. And now you can get 17.5% of 8.25 million, not another 1.75 million rand. A lot of people get confused and they just say, okay, well, great, I'll put in 10 million. I want to draw it down as quickly as possible. It'll take me 5 years. It doesn't work like that. And if you actually understand your mathematics, you'll actually have, you'll see that you will actually never be able to exhaust the funds completely. There's runs into perpetuity. However, when you get to a certain threshold, it's normally around 75,000 Rand. When the fund value reaches that, you can then take the entire amount in one lump sum. They have just revised that recently. I think it's just gone up to 125,000. But that is the new revision. When that gets to a low level, you can then take the entire fund out. You don't have to just keep taking 17.5% from that. So that's important to understand. So that's the major difference between life and living annuities. Life annuities guarantee you an income. You don't have to worry about them. You can, and for the rest of your life, you're going to receive an income. A living annuity, you got a pot of money. You can invest it in the markets. But when that pot of money runs out, that's it. You've got nothing left for retirement. So it's a little more stressful. But obviously, some people think that you can get a better income in retirement from living annuities. You can also leave it to your beneficiaries. So it's personal preference. There's no one is better than the other. People who are more cautious tend to go for the life annuity. People who like to take a little bit more risk go for living annuities. So the definitions. Regulation 28. This regulation, as I said, is part of the Pension Fund Act and aims to ensure that individuals' hard-earned savings are invested in a sensible way and protected from poorly diversified portfolios. Regulation 28 limits a money manager's allocation of retirement savings to certain asset classes, including equities, property, and foreign assets, maximum of 30%. The overall objective is to protect consumers by restricting the allocation of investors' funds to riskier assets on the one hand, but on the other hand, to allow the selection of more strategic and complex options. Basically, as I said, the only thing you need to really focus on that is you can only invest in strategies and funds and everything that have a maximum 30% offshore exposure. I talked about drawdown, and just so that you understand what drawdown is, it's basically how much money you are taking out of your life or living annuity on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. The last slide, second last slide, has to look at tax and how living and life annuities are treated for tax purposes. There are some what we call exemptions. So anyone who's drawing a life or living annuity and is below the age of 65 at the moment, this is sort of 2020, 2021, has an exemption of 83,100 Rand per annum. Persons between 65 and 75, that jumps up to 128,650, and persons above 75 have an exemption of 143,850. So let's just say if a person is aged 86 and they have an annuity income equal or less than 128,650 Rand a year, they will pay no tax. However, if the same person's annuity is greater than that, then they will pay tax, and it will be taxed at their marginal income tax rate. I do another video on taxes and explaining exactly how taxes work. Check that out if you're wanting to understand tax a little better. On your death, funds can be transferred directly to your beneficiaries without your estate attracting any estate duties or executive fees. Obviously a life annuity, it dies with you, and so this is for a living annuity. But it's important that you nominate beneficiaries, otherwise your living annuity will form part of your estate and will therefore be subject to estate duties. Make sure you have beneficiaries, it's important. So when you pass away, your beneficiaries do have access to the funds within the living annuity almost immediately, and they can choose what they wish to do with it. They can, one, keep receiving the annuity income like before, so effectively they get the income that you were receiving. Number two, withdraw the funds in total, however they will pay tax on this. Or number three is a combination of one and two. They can partially withdraw and partially receive some of the income, but both of those still incur tax. So the last slide, just to look at the pros and cons between living and life annuities. Pros with living annuities: you've got an access to a wide range of investment opportunities. There's some tax relief on annuity income according to your age. It's not beneficial for everyone, but if you're in the lower tax bracket, definitely some benefit there. You can leave living annuities to your beneficiary. It reduces your estate duty if it's left to beneficiaries. It provides regular income. You have the ability to change your withdrawal rates on an annual basis. So I didn't mention that earlier, but it is important to understand. If you decide that you want to take 2.5% of your living annuity this year, and next year your expenses increase and you now need to take 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, up to 17.5%, you can do so, but you can only change the withdrawal rate on an annual basis. So you can't chop and change every month. You can only do it once per year. The cons is that you never have full access to the capital, and you obviously limit to a maximum drawdown of 17.5%. And some people might say that you've obviously got exposure to markets, global markets. Life annuity is a very simple concept to grasp. You've got a guaranteed income for life. You get it's good for people who are more sort of cautious. Again, it doesn't form part of your estate. However, cons, the life annuity doesn't pass to your beneficiaries. There's no investment exposure, so the value that you get on day one, you can map out what you're going to be receiving for the rest of your life, but the funds die with you unless you've got a joint life assured, so you and your spouse. And as I said, you cannot amend or alter the annuity income once you're in it. So once you're in it, you're in it. There's no, I've changed my mind, I want to do something different, can I get my money back? Once you've bought a life annuity, that's it. Great. I hope you found this video interesting, and remember, please, to like and share this with as many people. I'm really passionate about education and educating people about their personal finances. If you found this beneficial, please do me a favor and check out some of the other videos. Thanks very much, and catch you soon.